In the frozen silence of the Norse night, something stirs beneath ancient soil. Something neither living nor dead. A corpse with memory, hunger, and relentless purpose. Legends whisper that once a Draugr rises, no grave can hold it, and no mortal escapes its gaze. Tonight, we step into its haunted saga. Buried once, but never gone. In the frozen north, where winter seems older than time itself, there exists a terror whispered about in fireside warnings and carved into the memories of Viking warriors. The Draugr. Unlike simple ghosts or wandering spirits, a Draugr is something far more disturbing. A corpse that remains tethered to its decaying flesh, animated not by life, but by spite, greed, and a hunger that death failed to extinguish. They are the dead who refuse to stay dead, and their awakening signals that something has gone terribly wrong. The origins of the Draugr are steeped in fear and superstition. In Norse belief, a person did not simply pass into the afterlife. Their spirit carried the weight of who they had been. And those who died harboring bitterness, unfulfilled desires, or an obsession with their earthly possessions risked rising again in monstrous form. These were not peaceful spirits, but swollen, corpse-pale beings with strength far beyond any mortal warrior. They brought with them the stench of decay, the grinding of old bones, and an intelligence sharpened by malevolence. Early sagas describe their graves trembling in the night, icy air spilling from burial mounds as the earth itself recoiled from what clawed its way out. To encounter a Draugr was to face a being that remembered life with clarity, but felt nothing for it except resentment. They guarded treasure in their burial chambers, assaulted travelers, and stalked those they hated in life. Their presence was a sign that the boundary between the living and the dead had rotted through, corrupted by the will of something that should have been lost to the afterlife long ago. For the Vikings, the Draugr was not a myth meant to entertain. It was a warning. Death does not always mean release, and the past is never as buried as you think. Not all graves stay silent. Some hunger for the living. The Draugr is no mere spirit. It is flesh returned, animated by envy, greed, or unfulfilled malice. Unlike ghosts that flit unseen, these revenants have weight, substance, and a presence that chills even the boldest warrior. In the sagas, they dwell in burial mounds or royal tombs, guarding treasures they coveted in life. Some are the Helblar of Old Norse lore, death blue and swollen, bloated to unnatural size. Others are Narfalar, corpse pale, but no less deadly. The Draugr is often accompanied by a stench of decay so potent it can fell intruders before the creature even rises. Their movements are unnerving. Many are found upright or seated, a posture defying death, hinting at the malevolence waiting within. Grettis' saga tells of Glamour, whose mere presence drove people to madness or unconsciousness. These mounds are not empty graves. They are battlegrounds for survival. And those who dare disturb the Draugr's rest risk curse, crippling spells, or a violent end. Yet, they are not mindless. Draugrs exhibit cunning, hunting trespassers or livestock with unnerving intelligence. Their superhuman strength and resistance to conventional weapons make them formidable. In some cases, shape-shifting is within their power, appearing as animals or adopting terrifying, half-formed forms to stalk their victims. Some can manipulate dreams, spread diseases, or conjure darkness, even under daylight. Their goal is not simply revenge. It is dominion over what they perceive as theirs, whether it be treasure, territory, or the fragile lives of the living. In every legend, the Draugr embodies a truth that lingers in shadow. Death is not always the end, and some corpses rise with intentions far darker than the living could imagine. Here lies the first step into their world, where the dead are tangible, relentless, and very, very hungry. From the waves, death drifts silently. Not all Draugr remain bound to land. Along the rugged coasts of Norway, the sea Draugr emerges. A spectral mariner with a body molded by water and decay. A bundle of seaweed for a head, or clad in oilskins, half sailing a phantom boat. These revenants haunt fishermen, drifting silently with blocked sails, warning of doom, and punishing those who cross their watery domains. Their appearance is an omen. To glimpse a sea Draugr is to see death's shadow. Yet some tales twist terror into dark humor, recounting villagers outwitting these spirits in clever, chaotic confrontations that leave beaches strewn with wreckage. The Northern Christmas traditions intertwined with these spectral mariners reveal a deeper cultural connection. In Norway, the dead were honored with offerings of beer and food on Christmas night. Draugr, as it was called. An invitation for spirits, household ghosts, and even Draugr to commune safely with the living. The Draugr's presence during the holidays became a reminder that life and death are inextricably linked, that the veil between worlds thins, and that the restless dead have a claim on memory, ritual, and caution. Far from simple monsters, sea Draugr were integrated into the rhythms of daily life, their legends shaping safety, superstition, and community practices along the coast. Even in far-flung northern towns, tales persisted of drowned sailors, shadows emerging to claim the living or to settle old debts. Their spectral half-boats, seaweed heads, and ominous proclamations formed a narrative bridge between the tangible danger of the sea and the unseen consequences of greed, misfortune, or disrespect. Here, the Draugr is no longer just a corpse in a mound. It is a force of nature, a shadow cast over waves, a ghostly hand reminding the living that some spirits cannot rest, whether buried beneath soil or adrift in the cold, unforgiving ocean. Death is not the end, only the beginning of a darker power. The Draugr is not merely a restless corpse. It is a being of formidable magical ability. In the Icelandic sagas, they wielded trollskapur, powers akin to the dark arts, allowing them to curse the living, enter dreams, or even manipulate weather. Some could shapeshift into animals, a seal with human eyes gliding over icy waters, a flayed bull charging across a field, or a cat whose increasing weight suffocated the sleeper beneath it. There was no mindless haunting. Each Draugr acted with intent, often rooted in envy, greed, or lingering malice from their former life. Beyond physical threats, the Draugr was a master of psychological terror. A mound might emit a protrude stench, a tangible reminder of decay and death. Even the posture of the dead could signal their return. Upright or seated corpses were considered potential revenants, capable of wielding the dreaded evil eye on those who dared disturb them. Heroes in the sagas often required cunning, strength, and ritual knowledge to overcome them. Conventional weapons were ineffective. Only careful planning, decapitation, burning, or submerging ashes in water could finally end their return. Yet the Draugr's malevolence was not always indiscriminate. Tales of clever villagers outwitting sea Draugr, or of protective rituals such as corpse doors and iron scissors, reveal a society deeply aware of the precarious line between life and death. They feared the living might tempt fate, but they also acknowledged the clever, almost sentient nature of these revenants. In these stories, the Draugr is as much a moral warning as a supernatural terror, a reflection of human flaws, greed, and hubris, made flesh in the dead. They embody both the physical and spiritual consequence of actions, leaving an indelible mark on the folklore of Iceland, Norway, and the far reaches of the north, where death is never truly final. Even in celebration, the shadows of the dead linger. In Norway, the Draugr was woven into the fabric of Christmas traditions, blending fear and festivity in a uniquely Nordic way. Long before modern decorations and Yuletide cheer, families left food, drink, and beer outside on Christmas Eve. Not for neighbors or animals, but to appease restless spirits, household ghosts, and Draugr who roamed near homes. The offerings, called Draugr in some regions, were meant to ensure that the living would remain unharmed while honoring the dead. Sea Draugr, often imagined as drowned fishermen with heads of seaweed, were especially prominent in these tales. They would glide along the shoreline or appear on half-sunken boats, warning of death or seeking to pull the unwary into icy waters. Local folklore described clever northerners outwitting these revenants. One story tells of a man, Ola, who struck a Draugr off a keg of brandy, prompting a chaotic battle between the ghostly dead and the Draugr itself, leaving the yard strewn with coffin boards, seaweed, and the evidence of supernatural conflict. Land Draugr also haunted graves and barrows, guarding treasure or punishing the greedy. Their appearance was a harbinger of death, their motives rooted in envy or lingering resentment from their living days. Yet these tales carried more than terror. They served as warnings, moral guides, and a way to connect the community with the unseen forces around them. Through these legends, the Draugr becomes a bridge between the living and the dead, a shadow threading through both everyday life and sacred traditions. In the dark Scandinavian winters, when night dominates the landscape, stories of Draugr remind us that the dead are never truly gone. And even celebrations are shadowed by the presence of the revenant. The Draugr is not just folklore. It is a haunting, ever-present reminder of mortality, morality, and the thin veil between life and death. The Draugr lingers in the darkness of Nordic winter nights, a chilling reminder that the dead do not always rest. From the mounded graves of Iceland to the icy shores of Norway, these revenants embody envy, greed, and vengeance, yet also serve as moral warnings and threads connecting the living to the unseen world. Their presence during Christmas traditions, lurking in seaweed-headed forms or guarding hidden treasures, transforms even celebration into a dance with shadows. Through shape-shifting horrors, the stench of decay, and stories of cunning mortals who dared to confront them, the Draugr illustrates the thin, fragile boundary between life and death. These tales are more than superstition. They are the pulse of ancient fears, echoes of a world where the dead could rise and the living must respect their power. If you found yourself chilled by the stories of the Draugr, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a dive into the darkest corners of myth. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.